something a little bit cursed, and you can already see it in the reflection of my glasses. Also, it's hot as hell. It's gonna be even hotter tomorrow, so I have this lovely ice ring to help keep me cool, because my body does not understand managing body temperature at all. It's horrid. The ice situation is somewhat fixed. For context, my ice machine is broken. There's no rhyme or reason, it just is. So we've been working off of ice trays, and I've been using that to refill my 32-ounce water bottles. And we finally just went and just grabbed a couple bags of ice today. So it's been fun. I currently have 2 fans running. I know my mic settings are pretty good, so I'm hoping they don't show up. They shouldn't. They're running pretty fast, but they shouldn't. Hopefully. You should have no idea that I have fans running. It should be fine. But today, we're doing a building challenge, and last week I did building from memory, and as a punishment for not doing it correctly in the time allotted, I did a stream without my glasses. I have very horrid vision, but it gave me the idea to try and do something even weirder. There are many resource packs out there that change the entire game, and you can't see what the blocks are supposed to be. I have found one of those, Imperative for Language mod. So we're gonna see what I can build, no time limit. I'm just gonna see if I can make anything genuine. I can read some of the names, but even then, I can't see what it looks like with other things. Very nice. Hello! Hello, Bookish. So, this is what it loads. Oh, it's still set to oxygen not included from last night, because I got bored of Minecraft. This is gonna be very dumb. Because that's what Minecraft looks like. It's gonna be very interesting. Very, very interesting. That's the Minecraft enchantment table language. So, yeah, I have no limit, but we're gonna try to literally make anything interesting out of this. I love when everything lags because I dare open a world. Can it load? Do I even need the lights with this? Yes, I still need my lights. Do you see the problem? Do you see the problem? If you have your brightness up, you better turn it down. This is what it looks like. I don't know how I'm gonna be able to build. I have to work purely off of form. Colors do not matter anymore. Colors don't... Who cares? We're completely just a black and white image. There was a black and white texture pack, but I felt like that wasn't difficult enough. So it's just... Yep. Also, I'm gonna turn off shaders so I can work with this. I think shaders might be better, actually. I'm just gonna keep that on. I'm gonna keep... Why do shaders make this better? Do I still have my shaders up on high? I want to check that. No, okay. Good. Check the shadow resolution, because that bit me in the butt on the SMP, and I didn't realize it was up to max. Okay. I even know what I want to... I don't know what we're gonna build. I have no idea where I could even start with this, because what could I even do? What would look good? What could I make? I'm gonna grab random blocks for this. I'm not gonna specifically look up things. There could be a strategy to this, like, oh, look up stone brick and then build completely out of stone brick. I'm just gonna grab whatever pops up. I'm just gonna go with that. Oh, even this. Oh. You know what is funny? If I go over to this one, and you just have my randomly colored things. Are the dyes? Oh my good. You can't see anything. I can't. You can kind of like somewhat read. Oh, that's pale moss block. I can kind of read that. Others? No, not really. It's all a little... Okay, clay. I can kind of read some of these. But... who knows? Who cares? We are completely just shapes, no color. Even the sheep and the thing from Brush Animations is still colored, but it's the sheep. What does one build? I should have came into this with an idea of what I wanted to do. I'd even start with that. I'm just like, yeah, challenge. I should have done something specific. What's something I want to build? I don't know. I could build a ship. I've been building ships on the PSP, but I've been doing too many of those. My brain's kind of going castle. I've been making a big castle for my base, kind of, not really. I wanted to be at castle someday. Where do I even go with this? Yeah. Do I still have a screenshot of this? I'd have to do a mini version of it, but I should somewhere on my computer have a screenshot of a giant floor plan I made years ago. Like, before I started doing modded years ago. Where did this get thrown is the question. Minecraft builds? Bedrock screens? No? I think I know a place I would have stored it. Where's the screenshot? Where is this? I know it exists. I know I have it. Where is it? Yes! I found it! I randomly logged onto Minecraft one day and just built a random floor plan, and I've tried several times to, like, take the time to turn this into something, and I never have. We're gonna turn this floor plan into a build. I'm not gonna do the entire size that it is, we're gonna do the general shape. And I'm gonna stick it up in there in that corner. We're just gonna do the general shape of it and the general idea. I did start doing something for this, for multiple different build things. I think 2 separate times I tried working on it for the assets I was doing for a little bit. That still kind of somewhat exist on Ko-fi. Also, I got Builder Cape. It was one of the Twitch drops. I really wanted it. It's the only thing I had to take the time to figure out how in the world to get it to my account because it defaults to Bedrock and then you have to switch it over to the job. It's annoying, but I have it. And let's see if I remember what I wanted all the rooms to be. A lot of these were just little random bedrooms, and so they're going to be little random bedrooms. I want to do interior, despite all of this. I want to see what that looks like. So, I don't know. I'm going to have to remember what each block is. If I dare forget what one thing is over another, it's going to be horrid. I guess you and you. You and you? You've got the little names. I have no idea what this is. We're gonna do a cute little front porch. I'm mostly gonna use this as a reference to give me a floor plan idea, rather than doing it directly. We're gonna do a little round front porch. And I want to come back here later and make this a foundation. And then there's a big room right here. Big room. I want to do probably 3 in between. Yes, thank you. And we're just gonna see where this goes because I have no idea what's gonna happen, and I'm just gonna hope it turns out looking at least decent. That is the goal at the moment. Is that fine? Am I okay with it doing that? Yeah, that's fine. We'll do this. Leave it like that? Yeah, that's fine. We work with what we can. This needs to be slightly bigger than that, so we do doink. I want 1 block for door. And then donkus. Donkus, yes? Yeah. This is definitely going to turn out interesting. And I have no other thoughts on the matter other than that, and I just kind of gotta hope I stay consistent enough with this. Because otherwise it's just a complete failure. It still will be an interesting result, but I probably won't be all too proud of it. But we'll see what happens. And also, because I don't want to miss and lose what I'm working on, I have a feeling most of this I'm going to have to do by hand, which is going to make this take a fair amount longer. Just a fair amount longer, I would expect. So we're going to see what happens. Also, in the Discord today, I was supposed to put out a live notification, and I did. Apparently, I put it in the wrong Discord. I put it in the Passion SMP server Discord, and not my Discord. Because both of them have promo channels, and I completely fucking missed which server I was in, apparently, and I didn't notice until I was like, do I want to put a promotion here for me streaming right now? Not really. Wait. I put this on the wrong place. It took me the entire day to notice that I had done that. Literally the entire day. Hey. You know what we're gonna do? I think this would be better to make it a little bit more accurate of a curve. No, that's just off in general, kind of. Yes. Yeah, that's just off in general. Do I even need to do a succinct curve like that? Not really. Because it bends back. We're gonna use slabs so I can keep a track of how many in between. 2 and then 1. I need to figure out... It's like 5 in between? Trying to do the thing, but this is a struggle. Yeah? Something like this? Something to that effect makes a parallel hallway. And then I need, if I'm facing the correct direction, I need to go out that way at some point as well. I need to like half work on some things and half work on others so it all comes back together correctly. I almost want to make this a 3 wide hallway. I feel like that'd be better. Yeah. Yeah, we'll do that. So I'm gonna smush this in by that. And hopefully this is still decent despite that. You never know, we'll find out. Yeah, that does still need to be out one. Okay. I was a little bit worried about that. Is that fine? Yeah, that's fine. That's good. Other side, I need 3. And that slowly curves down as well. But it doesn't curve down nearly as much, and I have a lot more room to work with here. Because there's a bunch- I have a mini hallway and some rooms over there. Nope, excuse. Let me build the blocks that I wish to build with. I mean, I guess, yeah, it is a tiny version of that so far. Kind of to scale with the image, almost. If I do that, it's kind of to scale. Almost. Not quite, but kind of. A little bit. I really just want to do tiny rooms. Just tiny, adorable rooms. We'll do this as a 3. 3 to 3. Does that kind of match you up? I'll go out 4, maybe? Because this is we'll do 3 to 3s. 3 to 3s to 3s. Just make cute little room. No, the 4s would have been better. 3 to 4 to 1 to 3 to 4 to 1. Yeah! That makes cute. Cute little rooms. There's also a couple little courtyards and then one massive courtyard as well. Considering how far out some of the spread, I probably should have built this off to the side a little bit. Can I just get away with cut and then move you like over here? Yeah. Should be fine. I just gotta readjust a little bit of this. That should be fine. Some of the back part of this is probably gonna get in the way of that, but it's whatever. It's gonna make the rest of it look better. Yes, it's fine. It's fine. And then this also comes out here and does a thing over there and does the... There's too much going on. Why did I choose this of all things? Out of everything I could have chose to torture myself with, this was the answer. This thing that I've been trying to make work for literal years at this point. Every now and again I'll come back to this and I'm like, oh yeah, I'll definitely do that. And then I don't. Ever. I don't think there's ever been a time. The problem with streaming is I can't back myself out. Oh, really, I could. It'd make it far more annoying than I wouldn't know what else to do. Streaming is a body double for me doing this. And now I have accountability, and I have to get this done. I actually need to do the thing I've been procrastinating for years. We'll go over. How does this curve? Oh, you curve far out. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Can't even tell what block I'm holding sometimes. That should be good, right? Something to that effect. A little bit more, because it's when it's a curve, I want a little bit extra room, because if it's just the 3s in a curve, because of how pixel art works, technically, a lot of pixel art rules applied to Minecraft, you want a little bit more room, because otherwise it just looks like it's not the shape it's supposed to be. Like it's not the size it's supposed to be. Diagonal is longer than horizontal and vertical. So this just went straight over and then curled back. Okay. We'll do this out for 5, and then jut it back. That's 3? Okay. Yeah. How you line up? You line up with the bottom of this, so I have to actually, instead of doing that, really... Do you just have a straight line? Yes, you're just a straight line across. Just like that. So there's a room going... I need to fit a room, a porch, and a central hallway room right here. Somehow. It's gonna be like a 3-block porch. It's gonna be a tiny thing. There's literally gonna be nothing else happening here. Blink. And then how? How? Oh, I even had a tiny porch on this side too. Oh, you suck. Why did I choose this with this thing? Why me? Why? I'm gonna do this so I remember it's a porch later. Do I want to bring up... Yeah, I'm gonna bring up the grass here. I assume this is grass. Whatever block I just picked, it is what it is. What happens, happens, I guess. No, you just had a door going out. Okay, that's fine. How can I even remember that's... I'm gonna just have to know. Because there's nothing I can really dedicate... Well, technically I can kind of cheaty this and be like, I'll leave a great green dice here so I remember that's the thing. But that's also going to despawn, so. This is what is. This is what is. What happens, happens. This is an even tinier hallway. I'm just literally going to do one. I'm holding the wrong kind of block. It's just tiny hallway that give big greenhouse vibes. I think this was like supposed to be an observatory, auditorium kind of thing. Auditorium? I think that's the word I want. I think it's supposed to be auditorium. It's supposed to be a big glass room that held balls. So yeah, auditorium. That's fine. Technically dance hall would also apply. Yeah. That's about on model. That's fine. And this doesn't really leave from that, so I'll do this. And how does this line up? There is a tiny... There is a little bit... I'm going to zoom this out. Yes, I do have little porches there hiding in the corners. So I gotta do this. Probably do that. That would be the best to fit the shape that had occurred there. Readjust in chair because legs hate me and hips hate me. And I'm slowly working on it. It's fine. It takes a long time, but slowly I get better. And maybe my body won't hate me so much. I'm fine. I've been doing push-ups and crunches every day. Mainly for my core, honestly. It's like half weight loss and like general exercise for a healthy body. But also just because I have a really shitty core, I literally had to go to physical therapy. It started because I had pain in my feet, and I literally was struggling to walk places. Which is saying something, because I struggle to feel pain, period. That's a fun thing. And that's why I can't manage any body temperature. I need to actually look at the thing for like 2 seconds and figure out what the hell I need to build while I talk. Okay, yeah. Oh, that's tiny hallway. Tiny hallway. I want to do a 1. We'll do a 1. There's a tiny hallway right there. I need to do the things. But I've been doing push-ups and crunches to... Oh yeah, I missed this part. And I had gone to physical therapy for that. And while I was at physical therapy, we put together, yeah, you do have foot pain, but that's because you have such horrid posture, it is causing foot pain. You realize how horrid your spine has to be to cause that? Imagine how bad I was. It was not good. It really, really was not good. So that was a whole load of fun. A whole situation and a half. How did... Oh, that's how. The answer's literally just given to me right there. Eh. That don't feel right, though. I can't... Because the UI down here is white, I can barely tell what I am or am not holding. Yeah, I kinda want to do something like that. Two, 3. Something to this extent. And then leave a little room for corners. That shouldn't look too wrong. Yeah, that looks mostly like a 3-wide hall. Yeah. It's a little awkward here, but you can see where it's going and why it's doing what it's doing. I mean, I could do this, which would be an awkward spot in that room, but that's fine. And then you can actually see how that becomes what it is. And it makes a little bit more sense. That makes this, so I have to do this. But yeah, I had very horrible posture, and I had to fix the fuck out of that. And I had such horrible posture because I had literally just 0 core strength. 0. Absolutely none. It was not good at all. So I'm doing my best and slowly getting more core strength again. And against probably what should have happened, what I should have done, I literally have just been forcing myself the past couple months to do so many push-ups and so many crunches in the morning. It just started with crunches, and I added on push-ups because I'm like, you know what? I might as well attach it to this thing. Maybe if I do this one, I can remember to do that one and get beefy while I'm at it. Why not? The goal is one day I just have a casual sleeper build, and no one realizes. It'd be great. 1 minute I'm building custom farms and talking your head off about random multiverse theory, the next minute I'm flexing. It's cool, it's chill. This is what it is. That is the dream. Who knows, I may already be there. Not really. But you never know, I could be lying. Where's this room going? How is this room? How did I do these? That is... How? Why have I done this to myself? There are many questions to be had here, and I do not have answers for any of them. You know, I'm willing to do this. This is definitely going to be the end of this one, and then I have to segment these two into 2 different rooms, so probably right here, which is exactly what I built anyway. But they're kind of tilted. Yeah, sure. Sure, I'll figure it out. I would have done this with macaws and modded stuff, but then I don't think the texture pack would have affected it, considering it's not affecting my modded stuff, the very few things I do have here. So I imagine it wouldn't. I wonder if that's something you could genuinely do. As in, like, setting up a texture pack that does affect in everything, including mods. Is that a piece of code you could write? Is it possible to write a piece of code for a texture pack that turns all the textures? You just have, like, one base texture, and you just cover everything with the color. Or if it sees a texture, it goes through and replaces it with the things it should. I don't know. It'd be interesting, though. 3. This is a mini hallway. We can do this as a 1. We can do this as a cutesy little 1 hallway. It's gonna make it extra weird, but that's okay. It's just a silly hallway. Maybe when Halloween comes, I can take this blueprint and make it like a haunted house on the PSMP, on the server. That'd be goofy. That'd be silly. I like that idea. Do that. And then I need to do a wraparound and do another mini courtyard and fix it. How in the... One of those is a really tiny room. One of those is a ridiculously small room. Like, let's pull this up. Let's zoom in on this. There's a really freaking tiny one there. I don't know how I'm going to accomplish that, but we're gonna try. I'm gonna do 3, and then just have this keep going this way. How? It connects to it on this end, right? Yeah. So then I'd actually want that to connect up there. Did I do the porch on the curve? Yes, I did. So I'm just gonna have to turn this whole thing into a door. I should start marking out, like, doorways and archways. I'm gonna use the walls for that. Doink. And depending on how much time this takes me, if it starts getting real late, I'm like, okay, we need to call this here. I'm not actually done with it yet. Then we will come back to this Tuesday. That for sure. I'm hoping I can get this all done in one stream, but considering we're a half hour in and I'm still trying to interpret the floor plans, I imagine I'm not gonna actually be that efficient with this. Yeah, we'll leave it like that. That's fine. That's fine. This is what it is. We do what we can. We figure out what we will. Now we can put door there, door over here. Actually, I don't want to have them directly next to each other. I think that's fine. Leave that doorway there. I do want this one's doorway in here, so we'll put it right here and right here, maybe. Or I could have them more separated out, so it actually makes sense why we have such a weird long hallway. All doorways? Yes, that is all so far. Think so. Probably. Oh no, I'm being thrown to the beyond. Okay, we're good. No! No! I think we're fine. Knock on wood oh so casually. Oh yeah, I do need to put a doorway there. And doorway right here. Was there a door in this one? I did actually mark out doorways for this. Every time you see a piece of copper, that's a doorway. Oh, there's a tiny one. There's a tiny one right there, too. Yes, I forgot about that. Copper slabs were doorways, and copper, like, full copper blocks were windows. So I do have a decent reference for this, actually. I had some doors in funky places, though, so I'm not gonna bother with that. But I am gonna use it as a more firm guide for the courtyards and such. I think that's that half of the floor plan pretty much done, aside from the big back room. Let me do this. I might do full actual doors between these instead of just archways, so it separates out these areas a little more. I'll do mini archways for like the mini halls, but otherwise I think that's all good. You know what? I will put door right there. If I'm making that a little hallway. Where next? This funky area, that's where. In the little corner. I made such odd shapes. I just kind of built whatever and went, yeah, sure. And then didn't elaborate further. And just kind of, yeah, that's fine. That's okay. I don't know what I did here, but that's fine. I do have regrets. There are regrets I have. There are few. But they are there. They are, I know it was loud, I apologize. They are very few, surprisingly. Oh dear, the horse! I didn't even realize. Out of here. It could be a donkey. I don't know. It's probably a horse, so it kind of looks like one. Oh no, the void! I think what fixed this last time was pushing it down more. Do I need to push up? I need to find the correct spot where I'm not being thrown into the void. Maybe? Who knows? I don't know. I have no clue. I just know I do not want to be in the void. The echo chambers are not good there. They do not echo. That's the whole point. We're actually going to have a surprisingly straight wall right there for no particular reason, literally. Or I could do this. So it's a little more dynamic still. And then there's a tiny-ass room right here. Is that how we get out into that courtyard at all? Or do I have doors everywhere? That is how we get out into the courtyard. So it's just a mini hallway. It's not a room, it's a mini hallway. I can work with that then. That's fine. Then I still have the others to consider. Oh, that means there's only one other room right here, right? Am I counting? Yeah, I'm counting correct. That's just one other room. Okay. So we'll do donk. And this needs to start curving on in. Maybe a room about that size? How? I might need to make... This one needs to be longer, that's why. That's why it's not matching the floor plan right. Because this one had a weird edge right here. Yeah. That's what had occurred. That was the coinky doink. Yeah, we'll leave that like that. That's fine. And then big curve. And I literally just want like one block in between these, so I'm just gonna do something like that. And then I could have hallway. Right here. And do a little, little deck. Right there. Do I want to do full? It's a kind of wavy deck. I don't know. I like how that's fine. You know what? We'll do this instead, so it's a little bit off. Yeah, that matches. That's best for the rooms. There we go. So now they're both wavy decks. I'm hoping this is moss or grass or whatever I have. I'm trusting the click block? Pick block. Not click block. Pick block. Well, it is a click block. The pick block a little too much. And now that's both of the little interior courtyards done. I still need to add the doors for the other rooms. But those two hallway ones, I'm gonna actually make this one a hallway one for this mini hallway, which means I could put this door here, which makes this hallway make even more sense, because that wall literally had no doors on it, and it didn't make sense. I'm gonna put a door down here, and then put a door over here, and that one already has a door, so I don't gotta worry about it. And does this have a mini hallway, or is that another? That's another room! So you can't have a door there, because I need to put another room there, apparently. Which means I can move this door over to here, so that hallway makes a little more sense. I'm gonna do this, so I have a little more room to work with. And just make a shape. Just make a shape that could possibly be correct. Yeah, pretty much. It dips in a little more. But pretty much. And the void! The void! No, the void! Knock on. No! We're gonna undo. Do I have to have it sitting on the edge? Is that why? Because it's too much in and then it... Okay. Apparently I've been trying to fix it too much. It just needs to be ever so slightly broken. It's a lot like my mental health. That is genuinely actually kind of how I treat my mental health. Probably should have, but that is... Because I could probably absolutely take higher ADHD meds and it'd probably help me out more. But I also think it's very good for me to learn different strategies of how to manage that on my own. I need a good spot. This is a fine spot for the door. That's fine. I kind of want to put. I want to put it over here though. Put it with the other doors. I don't know. Hello, Haru. Hello. Hello, Dari. You'd think I know how to pronounce it after watching all the videos. All of the Royal SMP. Doriso-san. This is the problem. I'm not good at speaking. I'm good at reading. I can read words. I've had that problem consistently. There are many words I've read, and then I'll hear them in the wild. I'm like, what's that word? You watch them all? Yeah. I have a surprising amount of free time. I have videos going on the background all the time. Even before stream, I also had videos on the background. A fair amount of my recordings, I have videos happening in the background, and I just pause them, or even talk over them as I'm recording. People struggle to pronounce my name a lot. That's fair. But yeah. I will absolutely binge watch the hell out of just about anything. How do this? This is how, right. Because we set up that little rule, I need to make a little bit more room. Just a tiny bit more. So the curve curves correctly. Yes? Yes. That is how I need to do things. I'll explain to you how to pronounce my name once we get in VC once. Alrighty. I'd appreciate it. Do I just need to do like a straight curve here? Almost, right? No, yes. Yes. That is what I need to do, right? Yeah, that's the best way to do that. Okay. And then I'm blessed with a straight wall for once. It's crazy, during Pride Month? Here. I forgot how much I loved, like, actually working on this floor plan originally. I think my idea for it was just kind of like a summer estate, and all of these are a bunch of guest rooms, and that has various halls to host different events. Or I guess that's more like a vineyard. It's just it's an event place. There's a pillager post over there. That is actually really cool to see in grayscale. That's neat. I like that. Did I allot a room? Yes, I did. I allotted enough room to make a hallway? Right? Yeah? I could put a block here and that'd fix the hallway look a little bit, right? No, I need that. Okay. Yes. It just looks a little awkward because it is a little awkward. That's better. That's fine. And this comes down to a little spot right here. That gives me another little porch thing. We're gonna do it 3 by 5. And then I'm just gonna repeat the exact same shape we did before. I was so confused, I genuinely didn't know what you're doing, and then I saw the title. Yep, completely blind build. I have no idea what block this is. I currently have the Galactic, aka the enchantment table language. So if you see in the top of the screen, like, I have no idea what this is gonna be. And I had even no idea what I wanted to build, so I'm like, hey, I've been trying to make this floor plan work for literal years. This original floor plan I built on a Java world that I still have, vanilla Java, and it's about 3 or 4 years old. I think more accurately it's about 3 years old at this point. So it was about time that I dusted it off and actually did something with it. I've tried to do things with it multiple times over. I tried to recently even. And it just never actually happened, so this is also very much so keeping me accountable, and I am actually getting it done this time. I put like 3 random rooms over there. I should add more rooms, because it's just... In the top left corner, I randomly stacked 3 rooms there, and it's the only side that has this. There are 2 rooms on the other side. I'm gonna add more rooms. Once we have the full thing done, I'm just gonna add a couple rooms here or there so it doesn't look so freaking weird. Because this roof's already going to be horrid. I know that much. It's going to be very interesting. I think this is about the time I was starting to mess with doing diagonals a lot, and I was getting really interested in that. And then I just kind of dropped doing that as well. So, it is what it is. I know for a fact I wanted a fireplace in this room. For a fact I wanted a fireplace on that back wall. The one we're at right now, the far left, that giant room, I think that is the biggest room in the entire place. Yeah. The giant room was going to be a library, and I had that flat back wall. It's the only one that's straight for a long distance aside from that one main hallway, because I wanted a fireplace back there. So hopefully I remember to do that and we could do that. I really want. Just for that, I'm going to leave 5 blocks that are perfectly straight right there. So hopefully I remember to do that. I'm going to do 3. And then do 2 and match this up. There we go. And that should be the awful lineup that it was prior. So that's A-okay. And then somehow I need to round this out. I think I just need to slowly go at it like this until I get something rounded that I like. That doesn't look too bad. I think that's the best I'm gonna do, though. Literally just that, because if I go any more, it's gonna ruin the shape I want. And then I need to do it slightly off. So we have 1 block in between in that center, so it actually looks like a good diagonal, because otherwise it simply will not. Yeah, that's good. I'm gonna struggle to come up with challenges after this. The only way I ended up coming up with this challenge is I'm like, okay, Minecraft build challenge. It's mostly pro versus noob right now. I'm like, I don't care about that. I don't care about this. I'm like, maybe Sims build challenges? We've been doing shell challenges. And then I started looking up just plain old challenges. And I'm like, hey, there's a lot of art challenges that are like colorblind. And I could do colorblind, but then I would be able to see chat, and chat would be able to see. So we got here. Right now, my favorite thing to do with content is look at what other niches are doing and try and apply it to my own stuff. That's kind of how Amalgamation morphed. Because I started doing distinct challenges for that. And making distinct builds and so on and so forth. To see what I could accomplish while being heavily restricted in the game. And at the time, I was watching a lot of heavily restricted Skyrim playthroughs. Specifically, a lot of Juve and Doug. Alright, that's fine. No. Oh, this needs a, like, real curve. Okay. Curve. And then a little diagonal. Yeah! Yeah, that's fine. Or maybe I'll do this so that matches up with this room a bit more. Something like that. That's about the shape we had. Probably a little bit more out. So do this. Something a bit more like that. Even sharper on this corner, maybe? And then do not that. This. Yeah, that's better shape. Okay. Thanks to lovely shaders, I can actually see the silhouette of where this is. And you guys can actually see even better than I can, it looks like. So that's great. I need to put down a couple doorways for various places. We're just gonna pop a doorway there. Why not? Here. Why not? Okay, I leave you now. I have to prepare for a video that I need to record. Alright. Have a good day. Good luck with recording. We'll just do tiny doorways. For those back porches. This big doorway is the focus. And that leaves me with this back area. This is the one time I'm actually going to look up something. Where's... I know there are things called axes. Are you going to give me an... It's not going to pick it up because it's modded. How do I find an axe? Okay, copper axe. I can see copper axe. Can I hold copper axe? Yes. Because I need specifically an axe that isn't the wooden one, because that's world edit. So I can insta-cut down these trees. Doink. 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 I don't want to get rid of too many, but I do need to generally have this area free. So I can do what I wish. I want to try, if I can, to keep this one right here. If it gets in my way, I have to move it. But hopefully I can keep that entire one. I don't want to lose the axe. It took me a minute to find as it was. We're going to leave it all the way at the end of my hotbar. And then there's tiny hallway here. Just a little bit. And then big room. And it's also got these weird curved porches for some reason. Could not tell you why. 3, and then we're gonna do 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, and then copy that over on the other side. And this should make a pretty nice oval to work with. Excuse? Give? Thank you. Because it is a flattened oval. Hold on. Instead of that, let's do this, maybe? Yes? No, not quite. 2s. There we go. Okay, 2, 2, 3, 2, 2, 5. 3, 2, 2, 5. We got this. We good. We know how to do the thing, except I immediately forgot. Okay, we know how to do the thing. I do the thing correctly eventually. Perhaps. Just perhaps. Okay. And then I had the weird, awkward porches back here. Which I have a feeling... I'm not even gonna be able to boil this down right. It's just gonna be like a I guess. It is what it is. There ain't a real good way to do that curved porch, that awkward curved crescent moon porches that I did. We just gotta have to work with it and do the best we can. I forgot to do a doorway right here. And I definitely want to add more rooms. Is that all the rooms? That's all the base rooms. I want to add more to this because a lot of this is empty. I like having these front hallways open and have a bunch of windows there to see outside. I'm cool with that. I'm chill with that. I like that. But over here is when I want to start adding. This whole back wall, I want to have rooms. I feel like that's too big of a room compared to everything else we've been doing. I need to be able to actually do something with these rooms, but I'm also trying to curve it so the curved porch can make a little more sense. Yeah, we'll do this, maybe? I don't know. I don't know. I'll find a way to make that make sense somehow, maybe. I'm gonna try, anyhow. And then continue off of here. And that connects up? Yeah, okay. It didn't need a whole lot. I just needed a little more rooms. So the hallways weren't so horrid. There we go. That feels a little bit better back there. It actually feels all connected and it's flowing correctly. So now the magic. I want to take all of us, select. Can I do corners? Corners? You do. Oh, because the walls. I've done several blocks around. Clear. Stop. Stop what you're doing. I just want... Not those. I just want... Stop. You are clicking limit way lower, please. Not that number. Okay. Now that my computer won't hate me and make my room even hotter than it currently is, we can actually work with this a little bit. I'm going to turn up, not that much, just a fair bit, so I can actually click on the rest of this. So it keeps stopping way too soon. So I turned it down way too low. Theoretically, I can come over. We can do extrude corners. And just... Does this not work with a magic select? It doesn't. Okay, whatever. Oh, it kind of does. Because it's not selecting the slabs for me. So I'll call that a bit of a success. Oh, this one didn't get part of the selection. Yeah. Is that everything? That's everything that's important. Because I just need it on the exterior. Yeah. And I'll do some sort of arch or something here. I want to turn this into slabs then. So I remember to come back and do that. I should probably do that first so I don't forget that I'm doing that thing. How do we want to approach that? Oh, it didn't collect. It didn't get this. Extrude. Thank you. This is something I'm gonna have to raise probably as well. So what I think we're gonna do then, I'm gonna do this and then extrude this side, and we'll still do the arches on the other side. And I'll add that. Extrude that, thank you. And hopefully I've picked a good block. I just flat out do not know. This is still really interesting to me though. And I'm very curious what blocks it's going to end up being. I don't know why. I feel like I picked granite or andesite, diorite, something like that. I could have picked something absolutely horrid for this. But I won't know until later, so it's fine. It's fine. It's what it is. We'll find out later. It's cool. It's fine. What happens, happens. What happens, happens. Is there any others I could apply like this? I need to do these spots. So it doesn't do that. Anywhere else? I think that's all the important parts. Okay. And I can't get rid. There we go. I think I'm just going to do a simple supporting arch for these. And I need to come back through and replace this. I can't do different blocks, so I remember. This is also quickly, very quickly becoming a test of my memory skills. That was supposed to be last time, not this time. This is not a memory skill one. But apparently it is. I'm not sure if I like that. But it is what it is. What happens, happens. And I can't control that. And that's very freeing once you realize it. Inevitably, I start talking mental health. Inevitably. It will always happen. I'm not the most upset about it, but inevitably, I start talking philosophy and mental health. And it never takes long. We're not even actually an hour into stream yet. But it always happens. I've already talked about mental health. I was talking about it earlier. There we go. Yeah, just simple supports. Is there anywhere else? This area, I could kind of, but not really, do supports. And just do a backdrop of the foundation like this. We'll see what happens. Who knows? It is. It is. It is. A doink. We'll do... because I can't do there really right there. Doink. Do this. So I can show that it's a little curved platform. And then do, and a do. Yeah. Oh, this area needs it as well. We'll do this spot. And then do. Yeah? I guess? What? I guess I killed a cow over here. Okay. Must have suffocated in the ground or something. And then we apply same logic over here. We'll do a doot. Excuse me, doot. Doot. Donk, donk. Donk. Thank you. I do want to detail the foundation a little bit, especially for the areas. I need to not hit my power cord. I have already done that accidentally. That would not be a smart thing to do in the middle of stream, especially when I want to turn into a video. I want to add some decor to the foundation, especially areas like this, where it gets really lower. So I'm thinking maybe we copy kind of what's going on here. We're going to expand all of this out on this edge by 1. As a start and see where we can go with that. This is going to make the walls so annoying to see in some places, but it's fine. This is what it is. I will suffer the consequences when I do. And hopefully I remember not to fucking do it next time. If it's for sure an absolute straight corner, then I'm gonna do this corner. But if I know it's like a diagonal, then I won't add the corner, I think is the rule I want to implement for this foundation. Like this one is an absolute diagonal, so I go boop. Do I want to have the porch override it? Do I care about the foundation or the porch more? Porch more. Porch realistically would go on top, not foundation on top of porch. Because the half blocks are just like here temporarily. This is gonna make this little area a bit awkward, but it's fine. We work and try anyway. It's been a long time running, but I've ever so slowly worked on that don't give a fuck policy and attitude. And it's not necessarily I don't care about anything, it's there are some things that are just not worth my time to care about. And if I care about them too much, it's not going to be healthy for me either. Because yeah, this could end up bad, and I don't know that. I don't know that. So it's not worth my time thinking about, because I don't know that. And I'll get to it when I get to it. I know I will, because I always do. And suddenly, all the worrying is gone, because I don't have to worry about it. There's nothing currently happening. This is all fine. There's no anxiety to currently be had. We just vibe in. It is purely existence. Again, I always end up on philosophy. Welcome. Foundation. Probably start trying to do this here. I'm thinking a more extravagant version of that, maybe? Do something like this? Because we're going full shape here, and this is going to let me see this more than ever. So I can actually have some fun and mess around with this a little bit. Yeah. I think I genuinely will use this texture pack in the future, because I get too caught up in the colors and the palettes and all that. I need to just see the form sometimes. Sometimes I really just gotta see the small picture. And this is definitely a way to do it. Yeah, I like that. I would have absolutely just known that if it was just the blocks, but I do like that. It ain't half bad. It's certainly interesting, but I'm willing to give it a try. A doink, bonk. And boop, boop, boop. So I would have to definitely, if I do end up rebuilding this in survival on Passion SMP one day, I'm definitely gonna have to go through and make the floor plan way more efficient, because I am wasting so many blocks with this build. So many. Everywhere. This corner, doot, doot. And then I can do the same right there. Yeah? Yeah. There's nothing to do there. We're just gonna treat this as that. And this as that. Is there a perfect middle? No, there is not, but that was fine. We will work with what we got. Do I have a middle over here? I would assume so from that thing. Not a perfect, but it does give me something to work with. We can do that and do tiny arch. Actually, I feel like this would be better as a tiny arch. Yeah. And doot. Oh no, I don't want a slab. I've already forgotten. How do I want to approach this kind of wall, though? I'm thinking we do something like this. So we're kind of still following through with the pattern. Yeah, I like that. I like that. And then we can just repeat the same pattern we did way back over there with the other one, because it's the exact same shape. And I can actually do this one right here. We're far enough I can do that again. Boink, boink. I'm genuinely enjoying coming up with these challenges, though. I'm pretty sure with, like, the description of the VODs I said this is, like, a nice way for me to flex my knowledge, and it's been a great exercise. It's been such a fun way to try and approach these in a new light. You know, we're gonna do it like this. And then donk, 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 donk. Nope. We'll do this one, this one. Boop, boop, donk. And how do I want to you know what? We're gonna do the same thing I did last time. Boop. That. I can do this. That's fine. It doesn't match up, though. We'll do something a little awkward, but will make sense in time. I didn't even realize we were far enough I could start doing this again. Yes, this one, I can start doing that. Okay. And this one as well. And this one. We'll do this. Man, that's fine. I like that. And we'll do a proper one right here. Donk. Doot. I should probably reorganize these like this. Because that's usually what I end up doing. And what I end up using first and foremost. Nice. Yeah, I'm starting to really like that as a foundation. Again, it's definitely an interesting one, and it doesn't always make sense all the time, but once you see the full thing, you're like, oh, okay. I'm starting to get it. Okay, I understand. You start to see everything going on. I am so curious what blocks I'm actually using. How did I... Ah, yes. Doot. So I could do this on this one. Can I do threes? Can I do my beloved? Kind of. That's fine. I deal with the consequences as they come. Like that horrid spider farm we made. I still need to go and fix that. I won't have time to do it till Tuesday. I'm not gonna be home tomorrow. For the majority of tomorrow when I get home, I'm just gonna immediately start editing. As soon as I can. Well, not immediately, I need to eat food, but... this is what is. We vibe with it, we work with it, we do what we can. This one was just one of these. Right, I remember. Brain was taking a second. Yeah, my face, thank you. Thank you. Up. I'm surprised at how much I've actually enjoyed this one. Because usually, like, while I upplay it a lot, I do still... there is some discomfort with some of the various challenges that I have attempted. The flying without my glasses one was definitely awkward. Especially me running through it. It was fun, but it was for sure an awkward one, because I'm just like, there's not much for me to do or commentate on, because I can't see a damn thing. You know, I kind of rely on that one thing that all humans are supposed to have. Eyesight. That's kind of important for me to have. But it did makes for some funny moments, and I'm glad about that. I am happy for that. You know, we're gonna approach this one like this. I feel like diagonals, I can have a free pass to do whatever the fuck I want. And just make up shit as I go. And if it doesn't make sense later, fuck it. It's fine. We do what we can when we can. Yeah, it's fine. No, it's not. No, maybe it is. I'm trying to figure out a good way to approach this. And I don't have one. I'd love to have this here and make this of this. But that makes some of the rest of these awkward. Kind of means I need to do that anyway. I have a lot of awkwardness going on. That's what I get for making up the bullshit as I go. But if I do this, then I can do this, and suddenly it makes sense again. Doot. And it doesn't make sense again. Okay. We'll do this, so I can do this. Yep. Okay, cool. Pure coincidence. Perfectly centered. Fantastic. Love when that happens. And then we can do that. And that's... okay, almost rounded. Almost back to the start. I should need to continue actually over to this side. Doot doot. Up. Doot doot. Up. Doot. And that is not the correct block. I still can't tell which frickin' one I'm on because I love using the scroll wheel. And I never quite dedicated the time to learn using the number pad keys. Okay. I am okay with the foundation. And I am willing to clear inventory. Now we get to pick a floor block. I need to be able to have this in all three forms, so why not these three? I hope this isn't the same as the floor. We won't know. Or as the same as the foundation. I have no idea. Once I place these, they're just kind of... I need to do the walls first then. If I place these too soon, then I won't know which is the floor and which is foundation, and I lose the entire floor plan. So these are going to the void. I have no idea what I had anymore. Replace those so I don't forget. I need to build up walls and windows so I can do floors. I don't know. I guess I'm trying not to read what it is either. I'm just scrolling on through. Let's grab these. I'm pretty sure this isn't what I had earlier. And hopefully I pull this off like it's supposed to be. Hopefully. But we can only hope on that. The bright side is I can just use that extrude feature again. And then that can build up all the walls for me, and then we can go around marking out windows and such. I just need to build this up first so it's a different block. Even though we can't see it's a different block, the game will still recognize, oh hey, yeah, that's this thing. You want to select all of that? Okay, cool. We got you. And I think that's the only reason this challenge isn't going to take nearly as long. It's because I have those helpful little features that do some of the heavy lifting. Only some, unfortunately. I still have to be here and slowly gruel away at whatever I have built. It's fine. It's fine. We work with it, we do what we can, we do what we do. And I'm not going to be able to get rid of those walls and such until I get the floor in as well. Because then I will also lose where I wanted the floor. So there's a lot of if and buts going on. If and then if then statements. If then but, if but then if but, then if but. I think that right. Probably. I've not done any coding in years. I never set up this. Get rid of that. I don't want to know what it is. I am... Curiosity killed the cat, and I'm one very curious cat. On my last live. But I want to know. I'm so curious. I want to know. But that's not how this goes. I haven't built the entire thing yet. I don't know if I'm going to be able to build the entire thing this time, and I'm going to be so curious, but I'm not going to be able to do a damn thing about it. Because I want to be just as surprised and awestruck about what in the world I've just made as you guys are. Either awestruck or gobsmacked. I think those are appropriate words for whatever reaction I'm going to have from this. To whatever I built. Which is to be determined. I can hope we can get it all done one stream though. I'd like that. If like I'm almost done, we hit the 2 hours, then we can. I have a feeling the 2 hours I usually stream is going to take the entire main build, and then I'll have to do decorations Tuesday. I have a feeling that's what's going to end up happening here. Because usually roofs take... The actual house itself takes me a fair amount of time. And considering I spent majority of this trying to figure out that floor plan, I don't think I need this up here anymore, actually. We can get rid of that. There we go. Considering I spent the majority of this working on the floor plan, I have a feeling that's what's going to occur. Blink, blink. But if I'm like, okay, I just want to run through. I might just do a run through for furniture, though. I have no idea. It all depends on how long this part of it takes. And then the roof itself. Oh, that spot. I think it would take... I don't know. I don't know. I have such a poor perception of time. I was somewhat late to stream because of that, because I was playing Oxygen Not Included again. I got a decent run going, actually. I'll have to log onto it tomorrow and see how I can't log onto it tomorrow. I don't have time to do that. The next time I log it off to see if I want to continue that one or not. Okay. We can come back into here. Magic select. I don't care about that one anymore. Did I do a corner? Yeah. And that should be able to grab the majority of these things. Yes, yes, yes. Hopefully I don't miss any of them. I missed this one up here. Is that all of it? That looks like all the rooms. Okay. And now I can extrude. Do I want to do the 8 blocks? We'll do 7. Because that'd be 1 on top, which would make it 8 tall total, and the 8th one I can make the ceiling. So it'd be a decently tall place, but not so much so. Trying to go through this methodically as well, so I'm not losing any of these in the process. There we go. And then, if this is the floor, I don't need a 5 tall doorway. 4 tall should be just fine. If I'm doing the 3 wide, then I'll do a 5 tall, but if it's a 1 wide, we'll do a 4 tall. Bonk this. And I should just go ahead and do the floors, but I also want to make sure I get the doors. 5. I didn't actually have to rearrange some of my texture packs so they'd still work on top of this, because it wanted to evaporate my cookie sun and make it a normal Minecraft sun. I'm like, no. We want the cookie. We have the cookie for a reason. That's what I intend to use. Did I do this incorrectly earlier? Because I've been doing... No, that's 4. What have I been... 4? I feel like there's one I miscounted at some point. No, these are okay. They're all 4. I don't know what I thought I did. I thought I did something else, apparently. 3. Oh, that's what I did. I was doing it on the 3 instead of... Yeah. Okay. So if I do it on the 3, then I can go 2 up for the 5 tall or 1 up for the 3 tall. 4 tall? 4 tall. And for some reason my brain miscalculated go up 3 to 3 space. Like this. When I need that. This is such a weird little courtyard. It's definitely gonna be interesting to try and make something of it. This room is way too hot. It's just moving around hot air right now. I do not have an air conditioner back here. We've talked about it, but then I wouldn't be able to open my window for majority of air conditioners, because I have a screen on the window. And I have an indoor cat. So, if I need to get rid of the screen, then I can never just open it to open it. Which he adores. The cat. Is he over in the window? Yeah, he's filling out. He is enjoying himself the best he can right now. He's a long-furred cat, Dusty is. He's a very fluffy, long-fur cat. And so, this started ages ago. I used to own pet rats. I used to own 2 sisters named Nova and Sunflower. I don't think I might have 1 or 2 photos lurking around of them. But I don't think I immediately have any to share. But I got Dusty a year or 2 into having them, and I actually managed to have Nova. Sunflower was a little over 2, over like 2.5, and Nova made it over 3 years old. I got Dusty towards the end of Sunflower's life as a birthday present, and something we did to keep Nova and Sunflower cool every summer was we'd put a wet cloth over the top of their rat cage, and this would keep it pretty cool in there. Just cold water over a cloth. And Dusty loved it. He would sit on top of the cage on this wet cloth, specifically for the cloth, every day when we did this. He wouldn't sit on it any other time, only for the cloth. And so even after Nova and Sunflower have passed, I continue to do this for him. So he's been enjoying today. It's been hot enough. I'm like, okay, I really need to just sit down and do this for him real quick. And he's not a cat that really enjoys a lot of attention. I went over to him with the wet cloth, and he's just cold. He loved it. He's been wearing it as like a blanket for half the day. It's very cute. Downright adorable. He's since moved around a little bit. He's not like fully wearing it, but it's still like right next to him. I'll probably need to refresh it after stream. I need to throw this back in the fridge after stream. You're supposed to just put it under cold water. That doesn't really work too well. A lot of commenters and like when I was looking up reviews of this thing were like, oh yeah, just stick it in the fridge. It's way better. Just stick it in the fridge. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, sure. And it works fantastic. I now have a nice little ice neck pack. Neck ice pack. 3? There we go. I am very happy. If I dared attempt this before I got my new glasses, this would have been horrid. I love having depth perception. This is great. This is absolutely fantastic. Am I missing? I'm missing quite a few doors still. Quite a few indeed. Because I still need to do these. I think some of these will be arches, some of these will be doors, or I might make some open doors and make it look like a pair of giant open doors. I know a couple ways we can do that. So we'll see how that does. I think the doors kind of give themselves away. I can't even look up door. I know the doors give themselves away because I can see the outline highlight of them because they're different shapes. Where do I go to see all the doors? I can't see like, oh, I could see these. I'm allowed to see color. I'm allowed to see a tiny bit of color. And these are broken, yeah. Where are the doors? There's trapdoors there. I can't look up the doors. Where are the doors? Where? Where are you? Where did they get thrown? Where are they in the menus? Shouldn't they be here? No, they're not here. I can't. Okay, I can see the sharks. I can't see. I can see the tipped arrows. Those are potions. I'm just not allowed to look at the doors. Oh no, the oak door? I saw oak door. There's an oak door right here. Okay, can I just not this blank spot is a door. It's the blank spot. Okay. It's the blank spots in between. This is why I keep 2 water bottles. Let me mark down and finish. There's my pencil. Just want to mark down I finished another one. Bloop. There we go. So now, if I start feeling horrid, I can know, oh yeah, I'm dehydrated. All door? No, not all door. Miss the door. This one feels so... I should place the door not over here. But in this one. Because that just fit better. Because I don't have a single other door in this hallway. I don't know why I was trying to pull that off. Would it work so much better just in here? Like 4 down, yes? I think that's the consistent thing. I can remember that a little more than having to do a bunch of math for it. Just go 4 down. Fine. 1, 2, 3, 4. 3 down or 4 down. Fine. We chill. And then this one is the 3. Yes. Yes. And I'm missing quite a few over here. That's 4. And the depth perception strikes again. That or I just flat out wasn't paying attention. It was hard to say. Oh, I was supposed to have doors here. That was supposed to occur. Any other doors? Doors, doors, doors. Doors, doors, doors. Yes, okay. And then that leaves windows. I don't want to do super huge windows. I know a way I can make this a 2 instead of a 1 instead of a 3, so we'll do that. But I think it's mostly going to be 1s. But I want that to be a 2. Or maybe I could just do all of these as 1s. I think that'll be better suited. How tall? This tall. Just a little bit above. Yes. And I don't want to absolutely overwhelm with windows either. Just enough to add some lighting when needed. 5? 2 down? 2 down, yes. And then probably 1 right here. And do the same on the opposite side, which actually works for 2 different rooms. Perfect. And we're gonna do these ones like this. Doing them as 1s also alleviates a lot of the work I actually need to put into this. So that's gonna be pretty damn helpful on my end. I think I'm gonna preemptively like start placing these in. You know what? We'll do a different block for the windows themselves. I wanted to just throw as many blocks around for different stuff, just to see what happens. And see what comes out of it. We'll do 1 right here. Is that a different room? Yes, it is. And then we'll do another here. As well as here. Is this all 1 room? Yeah, that's fine. So I just want 1 spot that has a few more windows there. And I want to put a window right here, which goes into the hall. Yes. Good. And I want to do the same for this one. Yeah, should be good. I'm not going to be able to see the floor where I need to see the floor on this side. Okay. Do a 2. Do it pretty similar to how we've been doing the auditoriums, ballrooms, whatever we're calling them. I'm gonna spread these out a little bit more. So I'm putting a lot at these edges. And I don't want to overwhelm with the windows, as I said. Did I do one on this? No. And then I'll do 2 in. 2 in. Like that. Do I want to... Yeah, we'll do a 3rd. I almost want to get rid of that, but I like having it there. So we'll leave it for the moment. Unless I feel like it ruins the window design I decide on later. I completely forgot. I need to spend a fair amount of time doing windows such, too. So roof might even be next time. It's hard to say. This would be a spot for window, but I much prefer to just leave that an empty wall. That is perfectly where a wall is. You know, I want to matchy-matchy that. Or do I? Yeah, I like that. And we'll do this one. Are those 2 different rooms? It's 1 room, but it's a segmented window far enough apart. I'm fine with it. And I want to do 1 there and 1 here. Do I want to do 2 back-to-back like this again? Yeah, and I also want to do 1 right here. Yeah! And that wall is going to be the fireplace as long as I remember to do that. So we're going to leave that back wall completely alone. And instead of that one, I want to do this. So I can have that matching. And that's perfectly a wall again. Yes. Okay. And we're almost full circle. And just I'm struggling to see the time frame of this. I feel like it's definitely gonna be 2 streams then. Because I really do not feel like streaming long tonight. We already did a kind of long stream last night. Yeah. That don't look half bad. So far, we can't see any of the colors, but can't see what any block is ever. It's not something I'm allowed to do. I never know if I'm just going to end up picking 2 of the same thing. I have no clue. I want to have something as a wall. I read that one, so I'm not going to pick it. We'll do this one. I feel like I picked that one earlier. I'm going to check this one down here. That doesn't have a wall. Okay, the one right before it then. And I'm trying my best not to read these because I want to be surprised. I want to have not a single damn clue of what it could possibly be. And I'm thinking... not something super complex. Just something cute. I say and proceed to make something decently complex. Yeah. I like that. It's just ever so slightly fancy. If I can, I want to see if I can go around and copy paste it. That would be rather helpful. Did I do slabs? Yes. Would it be better? No, I do. I do really need to have that underneath it. Can I do? Yeah. I'll need to put like a shelf or something here. I have no idea what block I'm working with, so I can't do too much for that to help it out. But we can certainly try. I missed one right there. Not that. This. Thank you. I wonder how much I can get myself to speedrun of this and be as efficient as possible about the placement of all this. Because there are a fair amount of things I redo over and over. Shut. Thank you. There are a fair amount of blocks I redo for this. So I think I should do the outside all the way through and then come back around for the stairs interior. I'm gonna do a tiny version. Kind of. I'm gonna do a slightly different but similar version. I never did the floor. That is something we still need to do as well. And just a tiny version for various doorways. Stair, a bunch of these. Blink, blink, boop. No. I feel like the way I gotta apply it to this, the wider doors, is like that? Or maybe not that, but this. Yeah. All the way down. And because I'm doing walls here, it should still have a decent airway through here. Walkway through here. Yeah. So it's a still pretty nice pathway on through. Doot. And doing what we can. It's gonna have to be stairs on the diagonals. I fear. And how... we'll do it against the walls. Like that. So I feel like that's what gives this same feeling. This same feeling. For this. This one I can immediately fix though and just do that. Yeah. Doink, doink. Boop, boop. Nope, thank you. Up. And this is happening semi-erratically. It's fine. I don't have to have a distinct process with this one. We just kind of vibing with it and trying to build the best I can accomplish. While not seeing a goddamn thing. I really hope this turns out well. I really hope it ends up at least looking somewhat cool. I'm so curious. No, thank you. Just want to get rid of that. Not that. There we go. I don't want to see what it is. Get rid of that. Thank you. Like a saw. Like a saw. You know I'm slightly burnt out when I can't even do a proper chatting throughout the stream. And I'm just kind of saying whatever comes to mind in the moment, but it's fine. It's fine. Again, this is what is. And I'm doing this to the best of my current ability. It probably doesn't help my brain's probably a little fried from the heat. That could absolutely be a reason. I do not handle heat well. I do not like the heat. Pretty much year-round where I'm at, it's just overcast. Overcast, and then summer, suddenly we get very sunny, and then we're back to overcast. There's not a whole lot of variety here. Overcast, rain, wind. Congratulations, you know our weather. You're one step ahead of the local weathermen, because they can't figure it out for the life of them, and are always, without fail, incorrect. It's like, oh yeah, we'll finally get hit by snow this year, and we get completely missed. Every time. Without fail. It's like, oh yeah, we'll definitely get hit by snow. Nope. We're gonna get hit by snow in the first couple weeks of the year, and it's gonna blindside literally everyone, and we're gonna close everything down because it's just an absolute snowstorm for no reason. And it only happens like every 5, 6, 7 years. Yeah, we're almost about due for a snowstorm, then. I have to keep an eye on this coming January. We'll see what happens. It might just blindside us again. Or it might never happen. I could never see another snowstorm from this area in my life. You never know. I'd fully believe that occurring. I keep missing the blocks, and I keep fixing another one I don't want to. No! Stop that. I guess people have like I might be able to see what some of the blocks are when I'm editing. That's just the nature of it, because if I pause for anything and I'm hovering over something, I'll get to see what it is. I just kind of have to hope I forget. And that is the nature of VODs, you guys. Once this is a VOD and everything. I think Twitch did add integration so you can pause live streams now. Because that used to not be a thing you could do at all. But I'm pretty sure y'all can do that now, so you could just pause and find one of the moments where I've hovered over something and find out what it is. That ruins half the fun. That is the majority of this, just not knowing what the fuck is going on. Even when you know it, still. That is something I outlined when we started this. Even when you know what it is, we still have no clue what that's gonna look like together. Unless you open up Minecraft and start putting the blocks together to see what they all look like, and do a little test palette. Who knows what it's gonna be? Who knows? I don't know. I'm picking based off of purely vibes. And that is it. Because that's all I can do. That's all I can even attempt. This is taking forever. I love and hate that I have to do this by hand. Because it definitely brings me back to just wasting my days away, because I was pretty damn good at school, because I just always got things done in school to a point where if I got home, I either had no homework or I had a few questions left that I just barely didn't have enough time to finish. And I just fucked around in Minecraft all the time. That's what happened. This would still be occurring if I wasn't streaming. full disclosure, I would still be doing this insane shit. Probably not to, like, challenges specifically, or to the extent of, like, posting them all the time and making sure I'm doing consistent work in progress on these things. But I'd still be doing the exact same shit. It just wouldn't be on, like, a major SMP. Or on, like, these really modded worlds. I would just be doing the exact same things. Like, the floor plan that was up there earlier, that was before I even really took streaming seriously. I just randomly did that one day. A lot of the crazy shit I still do happens off camera. Because sometimes I just get into a flow, get in a vibe, and get it done. And sometimes that's just what I gotta do. I need to find a way where I can really lean into that, but also still make it a video I'd be willing, 1, to edit, 2, to watch, and 2, that you guys would want to watch. And I think I'm slowly finding it. Very slowly, but finding it indeed. I'm not even, I'm like halfway done with these windows. And I still need to go back through it. I can't see what block I'm on. I still need to go back through afterward and add all the stairs inside. That's... Again, can't see which thing I'm holding. It all looks the same down here. You can... Yeah. It all looks the same. And they're all different. They're all the wrong text, so it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if I could read what's there. I don't know what it is. I don't know. Who knows? I don't know. What I do know is hopefully things are going to go back to normal pretty soon, and this is all going to be a whole heckin' lot easier because the kitchen reno is going to be fucking done. And soon life will be a lot more regular for me, which will make this a lot more stress-free. Let's give it a bonk 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 bonk. Bonk 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 bonk. Very slowly but surely. That's all I can do. Slowly but surely. Steady progress is better than none at all. Speaking of steady progress, there's gonna be continuous clips for a little while. I'm gonna start trying to get really on top of getting clips from the streams. There's probably not going to be as many from the building streams and such, but there'll definitely be more from, like, Passion SMP, or occasionally if I get something funny from a build challenge or another. Or more like, not necessarily the build challenge itself, but if I have a punishment for the build challenge if I fail. I have a lot of clips that are going up, specifically just from the flight section of the building from memory. I am very excited for that. I have so many clips from that. And so those are going to be slowly rolling out. I'm really liking that. That actually looks so cool. I don't care what it's going to be at the end. That looks really cool. This is now getting warm. That's better without. But I'm really enjoying that. Sometimes you just gotta turn off brain, revert to monkey, and pick block that feel right. Just roll with it. Isn't that a D&D group? I feel like that's a D&D group. Or somebody's talked about making that a D&D group. That's gotta be, right? I wasn't happy about me doing that. I don't know how to change that correctly. Oh, you know what I can do? I could do this. No? I don't know how to change those ones to be correct, but not this one. That is how. There we go. And then I could change this back to a stair. Aha! Let me out. Oh, there's a tiny one. There's the window right here. Yeah, you guys aren't gonna be happy about me doing that either, are you? I don't know how to fix that. Actually, I do. I do know how. It's called don't have a window right here. This is a really fucking awkward place for a window anyway. Doink, 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 doink. All of the walls. Doink, doink. Get rid of that. So I don't accidentally read it later and then ruin the surprise for myself. Doink, doink. My brain is just fried. It just... I'll have a nice day of relaxing tomorrow. But until then, I am fried. It's just the price I pay for progress. And making sure I'm actually ahead of the things I need to do. I've been able to do that a lot this weekend. I was very happy I was able to manage that. And I've been ahead of schedule, at least by a good hour or two each day. And have a good amount of free time before stream or before I go to bed, etc. It's been nice. It's been chill as fuck. I like it. It's a little annoying because I'm used to like working up until bed and then like, okay, there's nothing stopping me from going to bed. I'm going to bed. When I have time before bed, I end up staying up late because I get caught up doing this or that. And playing way too much Oxygen Not Included yet again. I'm slowly finding a better groove with it. Slowly but surely. Yet again. Clearly there's a few sayings I like to say. Bup, bup, bup. Get rid of. Donk, donk. Doot, doot. Bup. We have learned that I need to do this. Or actually, do this and then doot. Doot. Nice. And then doot, doot, doot. Doot. I need to fix that. Doot, doot. Yeah. The things I do to make the builds look good. Bup, bup. The Axiom thing is genuinely like such a helpful tool though. Doot, doot. This is... No, it just feels like a different one. It's the same thing we just did. It just feels different for some reason. Oh, probably because there's a wall back there, that's why. That's the only reason it feels different. Because it just ever so slightly looks like there shouldn't be a window there, or it looks like it's just a straight wall. But I kind of need this wall here for that room, so... This is what is. Donk, donk, donk. Nope, donk, donk. Need to drink water. And boop, boop, boop. I might be able to get a clip out of the reaction for this. I can't wait to see what it is. I can't wait to see what in the world I have made. I plan on doing a fair amount of design in the interior as well. I want to do room trims. I want to do a bunch of stuff. I want to do a trim with the shell. I want to do some fun stuff with it. I want to have this seriously as like detailed as I could possibly manage out of this thing in vanilla for the interior. And because I've made such a fancy house, we can definitely get away with that fitting in with a build regardless of what block ends up being. Watch, I'm gonna somehow end up picking spruce wood, aka my favorite wood. I've been running out on Passion SMP though. I'm not happy about that. I keep having to run out and grab more. I just need to finish the paths, because finishing the paths would give me a fair amount of it again. Because I have to go through a bunch of different forests and a bunch of different areas in order to make the various paths for everybody. Granted, we don't need it anymore. Absolutely not. We don't need them. But that is most definitely a way I could get a bunch of the resources I need right now. Right. This, like that. No, like this. Thank you. And then stairs all the way to the bottom walls. No. Thank you. Doot. And then this one. I kind of want to do this in the middle here. Just to be a little extra. Just a little something. Because why not? Pop, pop, pop. And slowly fix everything. I think I'm gonna remove one of these. Because we're kind of... I'm gonna make it just one right here. That's what we're gonna do. Because there's a lot of windows going on. And I'm also gonna do the same right here, because there's just too much happening. Yeah. We're kind of covering all of this with windows, and there's no negative space going on. I think I want to make... We're gonna, instead of those two, I'm gonna have to redo this. I'll redo this one. So we just have one little window in the corner. That's a nice balance point between all of it. So we don't have nothing going on over here, but we have a lot more space. Yeah, that's a lot less clutter. I'm half tempted to almost remove this, so it's only one. But I kind of like having that window there. That's the only time I've done a window like that, because I've had them so close to each other. I really like that. And so past the time I usually end stream, so we're going to try and wrap this up. I want to start prepping something real quick. Just a few ideas, completely just outline, nothing else, for next time. Now I'm going to forget to use the right block. That is not correct. There we go. I still need to go through and do the interior. I will forget to do that next time. We're going to run through and do that. Apparently I also forgot this one. Hello, llama. No, it's still the horse. I don't know my silhouettes. I can't even say animals, because I don't know the silhouette. I guess that's technically still, I don't know my animals, because I don't know my animals by their silhouettes. Whatever. That's fine. Doot. Boop, boop. Boop, boop. Boop. Why not? Boop. No, this one. And then we're gonna come over to library and start from this room. Do this. Do this. I don't know what I want to do for in here yet, so we'll leave this as is. I do want to do one of these for the door. Did I do one of these for this door? You know what I have to turn on? Do I not have a setup? How do I even... It will let me! Context menu. I want you to be this. Which one's confirm? That one. Okay. So I want this menu so I can do these two buttons, so now I can just kind of face through blocks. And it don't matter, and it's going to make this a lot easier on me because I'm not going around everything to do the things I need to do. I'm not going to worry about the interior doors yet because I don't know what I'm doing with that. I only know currently what I'm doing with the windows and exterior doors. Doot, doot, doot. Oh no, there's a window right there. There's a window right there. I almost missed. And then donk donk. There's probably a command I could do for all these. I'm pretty sure I could get away with that, just above such and such block. But I don't know what the block is, so never mind. I can't even do that. There's probably a faster way to do it, but that requires me knowing what in the world I'm building. So immediately scrap that. And I did that one, so I need to come around to this one, which doesn't have a wall. This room doesn't even have any windows. Because I've overpopulated like all of this with windows. We're gonna remove this one. You know what? We will leave that without a window. That'll give me a challenge on how in the world to work with it. I'm fine with that. Oh, you have like 3 different windows in this one room. Whatever. Where's next? This is the next room. And then tiny hallway into a bigger room that I forgot the walls for half the time. Literally half the time. Excuse. Let me place back. Thank you. Is this on shuffle? It's playing like the same shit. Yes, it is. It's just coincidentally playing the same things. Alright. And because of copyright, the music only saves... The music doesn't save to VODs. You kind of have to be here live for it. I apologize. This is what is. You're more than welcome to play your own music. I strongly recommend it. It's a great way to watch VODs. Especially if you know they do their own live music. Just start playing your own. Why not? I mean, if they start singing to whatever they're listening to, it doesn't match up, but that's fine. It's not a huge diff. It's not a big thing. Oop. Oop. And then that's all of these. Okay. I will do this one because that's exterior door. That one's just a hallway, so I'm not going to worry about it. Yeah! Okay. I will clear. We have a great thing going on here. There is a lot of windows. I might pull that back next time, or we'll find a way to make that match and work. I feel like to bury some of the windows, I might... We're going to add a cuff to this. I'm not going to build out the entire thing, but I want to start prepping that thought. I don't need a wall for this one. Do I want a wall? No, a wall would look cool. Hold on, I have an idea. We're going to take these. Because the idea I have in mind is we... I do want to build all this up, at least one more. Clear selection. No, one. There we go. And then this. Is that all up one? Yes? Yeah, okay. I'm not going to completely build it, but I would like to do something like this. No, that doesn't do what I want it to do. Okay. Oh, that means I need to either remember I'm doing this next time, or do all this right now. You know what we're going to do instead? I'm just going to put down a sign, a couple keywords to remember. Where are the signs? Is this decor items? I have to actually read some of these so I can find where in the world. Where? Item frames. Paintings. A lot of paintings. Those are shelves. Are these the signs? There's signs! There we go. Bert sign. Cuff? Cuff ceiling, or cuff lining? Cuff line top. Tall roofs. Didn't do floors. I still need to do the floors. I completely forgot about that. Alright, I'm gonna sit myself right here. I'm gonna grab a random assortment of blocks again. I now know I don't need the wall, so I'm gonna see if I can grab something that doesn't have a wall. Just for the spiciness of it. There we go. Guff line, top, tall, roof. Didn't do floors. So we'll leave us off here, and I'll find out what in the world this is another day, apparently. I'm gonna have a fun time figuring out a thumbnail for this. Oh yeah, this hard screen. I love that. Alright, that'll be it. We'll continue and wrap this up Tuesday, and then if you're not able to make it to that stream or don't have the time to watch the VOD, or you showed up late and don't have the time to watch the rest of it, there will be a cut video of this going up on the main channel Wednesday, 12 p.m. PST. Next stream will be Tuesday, 7 p.m. PST. And until then, there's of course the VOD channel, or the other VODs here on Twitch, or there was a video of Passion SMP that went up today. So you can go and watch that. I made a quadruple iron farm, and it had way too much iron. It is way too good. I have not AFK'd the damn thing properly. I've only been building around it. And it's already at 5,000. So, a little bit too good. We're gonna be rolling in emeralds once I get the villagers moved over and set up at the iron farm. But until then, that'll be it. Thank you all for joining me. I'll see you in the next one.